Ladies and gentlemen, we've all had people in our lives who drain our peace, twist our words, and push our limits just to see how far we'll bend. It's exhausting, right? Toxic people thrive on reaction. They feed off your frustration and your need to prove yourself. But what if I told you there's one simple thing you can do, one mindset shift that will completely change how they treat you? You don't need to yell, argue, or explain. You just need to stand in quiet control. That's what today's talk is about, how to do one thing that will make toxic people stop messing with you. Once and for all, silence is not weakness. It's power under control. When you stop explaining yourself to people who don't want to understand you, you take back control of your peace. Toxic people thrive on reaction. They want to fight. They need a scene. When you argue, when you defend, when you try to make them see your point, you've already lost. You've stepped onto their stage and now they get to direct the show. But when you choose silence, you take the stage away. You turn their script into dead air, and that silence speaks louder than any comeback ever could. Silence tells them I'm not available for your chaos. It tells them I don't owe you my peace, my time, or my energy. It's not passive, it's powerful. There's something deeply unsettling to a toxic person about someone who won't engage. They rely on pulling you to the drama so they can twist your emotions. They're like fishermen casting lines hoping you'll bite. When you don't respond, you break the pattern. You show them you've learned something, they don't expect control. Silence is not about ignoring or pretending nothing happened. It's about choosing where your power goes. Not every insult needs a defense. Not every jab deserves your attention. The moment you realize your peace is worth more than their validation, silence becomes easy. Think about how much energy you've wasted trying to explain your heart to someone who's already decided not to understand it. You've written long messages, had long talks, replayed arguments in your head, trying to find the right words. But toxic people don't listen for truth. They listen for leverage. They use your words as weapons. That's why silence is your armor. It gives them nothing to twist. It's clean, calm, and firm. Silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself enough not to waste your energy where it won't be respected. There's a calm strength in someone who can hold their peace. You can see it in their body language. They don't rush to defend themselves. They don't raise their voice. They just look, breathe, and move on. That stillness unsettles people who thrive on control because it tells them they have none. Toxic people don't know how to handle someone who refuses to play their game. They'll try harder at first. They'll poke, provoke, and push because they're desperate to get that emotional reaction back. But if you stay consistent, their power fades. Silence becomes your boundary line, the invisible wall they can't cross without your permission. In life, not every situation deserves your response. Some things deserve your attention, some deserve your silence, and learning the difference is emotional maturity. When you stop explaining, you start observing. You start seeing people for who they are and not who you wish they'd be. And that awareness changes everything. You begin to recognize manipulation early. You catch the tone, the wording, the small digs disguised as jokes. Instead of reacting, you pause. You breathe. You let the silence hang. And in that moment, they realize you're not the same person who used to fight for their approval. You've upgraded. You've learned that silence can say what words never could. I don't belong in this conversation. When you respond with silence, it doesn't mean you're suppressing emotion. It means you're channeling it. You're letting time, not temper, lead your reaction. Silence gives you the space to think clearly, to decide what's worth your peace. It lets you respond from strength instead of reacting from pain. And sometimes that pause is enough to shift the whole dynamic. Toxic people feed off your energy. Take that away and they start starving. There's another side to this too. Silence isn't just for toxic people, it's for you. It gives you time to process what happened without spiraling into overthinking. You stop reliving every word trying to figure out what you should have said. You realize that peace doesn't come from winning the argument. It comes from walking away from the noise. You start to enjoy that quiet. It feels strange at first because silence used to mean defeat. Now it means strength. It means you're not fighting battles that don't build you. When you stop giving toxic people your attention, you start seeing how small their power really was. They were never as strong as they seemed. They just knew how to get a reaction. Once you take that away, they lose their control. They start showing their insecurity. They start trying harder to provoke you, and that's when you know you've already won. Not by shouting, not by probing, but by being silent and still. This kind of silence doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice. You'll slip sometimes. You'll feel the urge to defend yourself. That's normal. But the more you practice silence, the stronger you get. You start to realize that calm doesn't mean weak. It means wise. It means you're thinking long term. You're not trying to win a moment. You're trying to protect your peace. And that's a trade worth making every time. So when someone tries to bait you into drama, remember silence is not surrender. It's strength with discipline. It's saying, I know who I am, and I don't need your approval to prove it. It's quiet confidence that unsettles chaos. And the beauty of it is, once you master that kind of silence, toxic people stop trying to mess with you, not because they've changed, but because you have. You can't control them, but you can control access to you. That's the real shift that breaks the power toxic people have over your peace. Most of the time, we waste our energy trying to change someone who doesn't even see a problem with their behavior. We explain, we justify, we beg them to see how their words or actions hurt us, and they act like we're overreacting. It's a cycle of frustration that never ends because the goalpost keeps moving. You think that if you just explain better, if you're more patient, more forgiving, maybe they'll finally get it, but they don't, because they don't want to. Control is their comfort zone, and as long as you keep giving them access, they'll keep using it against you. The moment you realize that you can't change who someone is, only how much of you they get, everything changes. You stop trying to win their approval and start protecting your peace. You stop trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. You stop trying to make sense of nonsense. Instead, you draw lines, not to punish them, but to protect yourself. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors, and you decide who gets to walk through them. You can still be kind, but you don't have to be available. You can still care, but you don't have to engage. That's where your power lies, in your access, in your energy, in your time. Toxic people love access. They want to know they can reach you anytime. They feed on that emotional connection, that open door that lets them walk in and drain your peace whenever they want. When you start closing that door, they panic. They'll accuse you of being cold, selfish, distant. They'll say you've changed, and they'll be right. You have. You've learned that your time is valuable, that your peace is worth protecting, and that not everyone deserves front row seats to your life. Limiting access isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's understanding that love without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Control isn't about blocking everyone out, it's about knowing who gets what version of you. Some people can handle your trust, others can't. Some people earn your time, others only get your distance. You start managing your circle like a gardener manages soil. You prune what doesn't grow, you water what gives life, and you let weeds go. It's not personal, it's survival. And the more you do it, the lighter your life feels. You start noticing how peaceful it is when you're not constantly explaining yourself, how freeing it feels to not have to prepare for drama. You realize that peace doesn't come from fixing people, it comes from filtering them. When you control access, you're not cutting people off, you're cutting off their ability to drain you. You're saying, you can exist, but not at the expense of my sanity. That's maturity. You learn that it's okay to step back without guilt. You learn that walking away from a conversation that always turns toxic doesn't make you rude. It makes you wise. You understand that every time you answer that text or pick up that call from someone who constantly hurts you, you're giving them permission to repeat the pattern. But when you stop responding, when you stop giving them the reaction they expect, you change the entire dynamic. There's power in being selective. When you decide who gets your time, your attention, and your energy, you stop living reactively. You stop letting other people's emotions dictate your peace. Toxic people thrive in environments where they can predict your response. They know exactly what buttons to press, what words to use, how to pull you back in. But when you limit access, they lose that control. They can't predict you anymore, and that unpredictability makes them uncomfortable. They'll try harder for a while, but eventually they move on to someone else who gives them what you no longer do, attention. This shift also helps you reclaim your emotional energy. Every minute spent dealing with unnecessary conflict is a minute stolen from your growth. Your goal is your peace. When you stop trying to manage their chaos, you suddenly have time to manage your own life again. You start investing that energy into things that actually matter. You start seeing how much lighter you feel without the emotional weight they brought into your space. It's not that life becomes perfect, it's that it becomes peaceful. People often confuse control with caring. They think that keeping the door open is love, but real love includes limits. You can care about someone and still protect your boundaries. You can wish them well from a distance. You can forgive without inviting them back in. You don't have to explain your boundaries to people who benefit from you not having any. The more you try to explain, the more they twist your words. So you stop explaining and start acting. Silence, space, and consistency become your new language. You stop talking about boundaries and you start living them. There's a certain peace that comes when you no longer chase people who keep walking away. You realize you were never meant to convince someone to treat you right. You were meant to teach yourself how to stop tolerating less than you deserve. When you control access, you take responsibility for your own emotional safety. You stop expecting them to stop hurting you and start ensuring they can't. That's how you win. Not by changing them, but by changing the access they have to you. It's easy to think that distance equals bitterness, but it doesn't. Distance equals clarity. You see things more clearly when you're not in the middle of the chaos. You see patterns you missed before. You realize how much energy you gave to things that never gave anything back. The best part, you realize you don't owe anyone unlimited access to your peace just because they've known you for a long time or shared the same bloodline. Respect is earned daily, not assumed permanently. When you start living this way, some people will leave, and that's okay. The right people won't feel shut out by your boundaries. They'll feel safe inside them. The ones who get angry when you protect your peace were only benefiting from your lack of it. That realization can hurt, but it's also freeing. You stop chasing explanations and start embracing peace. You stop fighting for space in other people's lives and start building your own peace-filled space. Every time you choose to limit access to a toxic person, you're sending yourself a message: my peace matters. My energy matters. My growth matters. You're teaching yourself to value calm over chaos. You start living life from a place of control, not over others, but over yourself. You're not the puppet anymore. You're the one holding the strings of your own peace. And that's when toxic people start losing interest, not because they've changed, but because they can no longer reach the version of you that kept the door open for their chaos. Calm confidence disarms manipulation. The moment you stop reacting emotionally to toxic people, you take away their favorite weapon. They rely on your frustration, your defensiveness, your anger. That's how they stay in control. The louder you get, the calmer they look. The more emotional you become, the more rational they seem. It's a trap they've mastered, pushing you to lose your composure so they can play the victim or the superior one. But when you stay calm, when your tone stays level and your eyes stay steady, the whole dynamic shifts. You stop being predictable. You stop giving them something to twist. Your calm becomes a wall they can't climb, and your confidence becomes the mirror that reflects their manipulation back to them. Calm confidence doesn't mean silence, and it doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've learned to separate emotion from reaction. You can feel angry without acting angry. You can feel hurt without proving it. You can acknowledge the situation without giving it control over your mood. That's what toxic people hate most: losing control of your emotions. They want you to explode because the moment you do, they win. They can say, "See, you're the problem." But when you stay composed, their tactics fail. They throw bait and you don't bite. They push and you don't move. It leaves them confused, frustrated, and powerless. There's strength in being calm, especially when someone expects you to break. It's not about pretending nothing affects you. It's about mastering the pause between what happens and how you respond. That pause is where emotional intelligence lives. It's where self-control grows. It's where your peace is protected. When someone tries to manipulate you, maybe through guilt, blame, or passive aggression, your calmness becomes your defense. You don't argue. You don't justify. You respond with steady clarity, or sometimes not at all. That's how you take control of the interaction without force or noise. Confidence is not loud, it's quiet, grounded, and unshakable. It's knowing who you are so well that you don't need to prove it. Toxic people feed on insecurity, and when they sense that they can't shake yours, they lose interest. They can't manipulate what doesn't seek their approval. Calm confidence says, "I know my worth even if you don't." It says, "Your opinion doesn't define me." It says, "You can't pull me into your storm because I've found my center." When you carry yourself like that, you stop needing validation from people who thrive on making you doubt yourself. Every manipulator has a pattern. They provoke, twist, and blame. They want to trigger guilt or fear so you'll act in their favor. But calm confidence sees through that pattern. It watches, observes, and chooses not to engage emotionally. You start asking yourself, what are they trying to get me to feel right now? And once you see their motive, you stop reacting. You respond with logic or you walk away. Either way, you stay in control. Manipulators can't function without emotional leverage. The less you give, the less power they have. Being calm doesn't mean being cold. It means being centered. It means choosing peace over reaction, clarity over chaos. You can look someone in the eye who's trying to provoke you and say, "I understand how you feel," and then say nothing else. That pause drives them crazy because they can't twist calmness. They can twist anger, they can twist tears, but they can't twist stillness. Calm confidence leaves no room for manipulation to breathe. It suffocates drama with silence and steadiness. It takes practice. Staying calm isn't easy when someone's trying to get under your skin. It takes emotional discipline to keep your voice low when they raise theirs, to keep your breathing steady when they're baiting you. But every time you stay calm, you build inner strength. You teach yourself that peace doesn't depend on what they do. It depends on what you allow. You realize you don't have to win every argument to win your peace. Sometimes, walking away calmly is the most powerful statement you can make. Calm confidence also changes how people perceive you. When you don't react, when you stay grounded, others start seeing your strength differently. They notice your control, your self-respect. You start earning respect not by demanding it, but by embodying it. Toxic people, on the other hand, start avoiding you. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you no longer give them what they need: reaction, attention, control. They move on to easier targets while you keep your peace intact. Confidence is not about being right all the time. It's about being okay even when you're misunderstood. That's what truly disarms manipulation. When you stop needing to explain yourself to everyone, you stop giving manipulators fuel. They can't guilt trip someone who doesn't feel guilty for protecting their peace. They can't control someone who's not afraid of being disliked. The more comfortable you get with being misunderstood, the freer you become. You stop chasing closure from people who would never give it to you honestly. You start finding it in your own calm. Calm confidence also teaches others how to treat you. When people see that you don't rise to every provocation, they start respecting your boundaries without you even having to say much. You set the tone. Your calm tells them that you value peace, and your confidence tells them that you'll protect it. That's why calm people are often mistaken for intimidating ones. It's not that they're harsh, it's that they're unmoved. They've learned to control what others can't, how they respond. Manipulators lose their grip when you stay grounded. They might still talk, still gossip, still twist, but it no longer reaches you. You're not emotionally available for their games. You see the situation clearly now. You understand that their words don't define your worth. You realize their behavior says more about their insecurity than your value. That perspective keeps you calm, and that calmness becomes your confidence. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need to shout. You start carrying yourself differently. You walk into rooms without anxiety about who might be there. You speak without fear of being twisted. You live without waiting for someone's reaction to validate your choices. That's what calm confidence does. It frees you from emotional dependency. It makes you immune to manipulation, not because people stop trying, but because you stop responding. Every time you stay calm in the face of chaos, you remind yourself that peace is an inside job. You realize no one can take it unless you hand it over. You stop reacting to every storm and start becoming the calm within it. That's what toxic people can't handle. Someone who won't match their chaos. They can shout blame, twist, and guilt, but it all falls flat when you stay grounded. You're no longer a player in their game. You've learned the rule they hoped you'd never figure out. Calm confidence isn't just strength, it's strategy. It's how you win without fighting. It's how you stay free while they stay stuck in their own noise.